I'm happy to see that our pal Don Lemon did not miss the big Grammy party after being arrested at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Now, I'm laughing because this is what Lemon wanted to happen. And I write about it in my column on BillO'Reilly.com, and I hope you take a look. And it's not really an important story, but it is demonstrative of where we are in this country right now. So there is an enormous drive to portray President Trump as a fascist brutalizer, and the ICE roundup of illegal migrants is the spear point of that drive. That's a very important story because now foreign money is involved. So let me encapsulate it all in the talking points memo. The corrupt U.S. media is not very interested in the story we broke last week, whereby we named an American citizen, a man named Neville Roy Singham, a billionaire tech guy who lives in Shanghai, China, and works in concert with the communist government there. We told you that he is pumping tens of millions of dollars into the United States to foster rebellion. He does this through 501c, nonprofit, far left organizations. The money comes from China into those organizations. The organizations pay protesters to go out and commit mayhem. If you missed our reporting, which is now worldwide, we broke this story in detail. It is on BillO'Reilly.com. If you become a concierge member, which will enhance your life, you can get a transcript of every single word I say. Okay? But if you're not familiar with the story, go to BillO'Reilly.com and look at what we did last week. Now, you would think that every American would say, we can't allow foreign adversaries like China or Russia or the jihadists to pump money into our country to destabilize it. That's terrible. You've got to stop that, right? Well, it doesn't seem like the corrupt American media is very interested. CNN didn't mention the story. MS Now didn't mention it. David Muir on ABC News didn't mention it. David was busy covering the weather as he usually does. NBC, CBS newscast didn't mention it. We kind of missed it. I don't know how. It was out there big. Fox, Newsmax, and especially News Nation. They're the best at it. They did highlight the story. So you have to ask yourself, why would these major television news agencies, and the newspapers weren't very aggressive covering it either, why would they do it? Because it doesn't fit in to their main goal of destroying Donald Trump. That's why. Simple as that. Horrible. It's just horrible. Now, over the weekend, there were protests in the usual places, Los Angeles, Portland, Oregon, and a few others around the country. They didn't amount to much. But LA and Portland are very active 501cs. They get a lot of money, and they hire people and get people out there to create mayhem. In LA, second largest city in the country, there were 8 arrests. Okay? None of those people will be charged. Here's what the mayor said. Go.
I believe there's still about 150 people that are in an intersection. And I know that there have been arrests, and I believe they're up to about 5 arrests right now. And those arrests are for failure to disperse. You know, of course, that the overall reason for the protest today was in solidarity with Minneapolis, and that there were protests all around the country.
Well, there really weren't. This is in Vietnam. There was the usual far-left cranks mobilized in social media. They have lists of names, send them out, go here. You know the drill. All right. Now, in concert with all of this is Minneapolis. So tomorrow, the mayor of the town, Jacob Fry, far left guy, has to deliver information to a federal grand jury. Now, we thought last week that he would have to appear himself, but that's not the case now. He's been subpoenaed, and the federal prosecutors have asked for information. Okay, we're having a lot of trouble getting what the Justice Department is doing. The FBI delivered the subpoenas not only to Fry, but to the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz, as best I can determine. All right? This is the reason. And we have, believe me, spent hours on this. The investigation is into whether Fry and Walz obstructed or impeded federal law enforcement during a sweeping immigration operation in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area. So those two men are being investigated on federal charges of obstruction of justice. Not insurrection yet, not rebellion, obstruction of justice. That is what we can ascertain. But I can't swear to it. Now, we've been in touch with the FBI. They're not going to tell us anything. And I understand when you have an active investigation, whether it's local, state, federal, cops don't want to be feeding stuff out. They want to gather the data. Oh, right, I got it. But this is so important for the American people to know. So what are you looking at in Minnesota? FBI, Justice Department, Pam Bondi. What are you looking at? That's all. All right, you know, we are a due process outfit here. We're not going to convict anybody of anything. Just give us an overview. Very difficult to get anything. In addition, the FBI has now taken over the investigation into the death of Alex Preddy. You'll remember on January 24th, he was shot dead by Border Patrol agents, and it's a big controversy. It's driving a lot of this, of these protests. And we're not litigating it here. That's insane. That's what they do on the corrupt television networks. We're not going to do that. But it is important that the FBI investigate this because the Border Patrol can't investigate the Border Patrol. ICE can't investigate ICE. That's crazy. So I'm happy to hear that. All right. But the bigger story is the rebellion by a state. And Victor Davis Hanson, and we send our condolences to Professor Hanson because he has lung cancer. He wrote a column that mirrored mine. I think it broke yesterday. That look, this is no different than what happened before the Civil War with the South. It's no different. It's the same exact thing. States going, blank you, federal government, we're going to do what we want, and let's see what you got. Big. So I hope that you understand my job is to get as much information to you as I can. We're all over this thing. And that's the memo. If you are stressed out about getting out of debt, please listen to this. According to the Federal Reserve's latest survey, many banks have tightened their standards, which means right now could be your best window for negotiating settlements before lenders tighten up even further. And Done with Debt is one of the best I've seen at navigating debt relief. Done with Debt tracks credit card and loan company behavior, so they know who's negotiating and when, and how to get you the biggest reduction possible without bankruptcy or new loans. Done with Debt helps you through the debt relief process so you can keep more of your paycheck every month. So don't wait for lenders to tighten up their policies. Visit donewithdebt.com now. Talk with a debt specialist. It is free. Donewithdebt.com. A couple of polls. Used to be the Kaiser Family Foundation. That's not. They changed their name to KFF. They did a poll. Okay, 1,400 U.S. adults. First question. Thinking about the past year, would you say your cost of living has increased a lot? 50%. Whoa. Increased a little. 32. That's 82%. Stayed about the same, 12. That is not a good number for the president. Second question, how worried are you to be paying these bills? Healthcare. Very worried, 66. Not worried, 34. Food, 57 worried, 43 not. Rent, mortgage, 52 worried, 48 not. Monthly utilities, 57 worried, 43 not. Pew poll, this is different than the poll I just gave you. It's very simple. Do you approve or disapprove of Donald Trump's handling his job? Approve 37, disapprove 61. Obviously, that is not a great number for Donald Trump. Next question, do you think the Trump administration's actions since taking office last year have been better than expected, about as expected, worse? Better, 21, about 28. That's 49%. That's not a bad number. Worse, 50. So it's about a tie. Another poll. This is the McLaughlin poll. Now, John works for President Trump. So it's a Republican-generated poll. That being said, John McLaughlin's been very accurate. We wouldn't use him if he wasn't. So, 1,000 likely voters. The Pew poll is 8,500 U.S. adults. Nothing to do with likely voters or registered voters. Okay? These are the people who are avid under McLaughlin. Question, do you approve or disapprove of the job Donald Trump is doing? Approve 50, disapprove 47. That is the biggest discrepancy I've seen quite some time. Okay? Do you support or oppose deporting known criminal and terrorist migrants? Support 87, oppose 10. Do you support or oppose deporting all migrants? Support 62, oppose 32. That startling number right there. Joining us now is John McLaughlin from upstate New York. So when you saw the Pew poll goes way the opposite way of your poll, you said to yourself, what?
Let me check the internals. Let me check the demographics, how they did it. And it's only, it's literally 28% Republican. We model ours after actual voter turnout. My survey matches up with the CNN exit polls from the last presidential race. Their poll, we had Republicans 35%, Democrats 34%, very close to the CNN poll. Their poll has only 28% Republicans.
So are you saying they cooked the books here?
Sure, they've been cooking the books. These media polls have been cooking the books against Trump since 2016. Remember the Hillary lock? There was no way Trump could win.
All right, so that's a pretty strong accusation you're making against Pew, that they're cooking the books. They're trying to get the negative number to hurt Trump going forward. And you believe that?
Oh, I believe it. Because it's adults, and they know it's not apples to apples, but they get a big headline. And you look at polls, I mean, there's been a series of them in the last couple of weeks. Our friend Larry Kudlow did a series on this where you have when you look at the New York Times poll that was registered voters, they only have 38% Trump voters. We got 50 in the last election. We got 50% of the vote. We won the popular vote. You have polls like the Economist YouGov. They come out with a poll where they had in their poll, you're referring to notes, I got to refer to my notes, but they had more Harris voters, 46%, to only 34% Trump voters out of 1,722 adults. This is adults. They could be interviewing illegal immigrants for all I know. And you have the same thing with Pew, where Pew, it's adults. And they do it with an online panel.
I believe you. You don't have to convince me any further. I believe you that they're not honest polls. No surprise in this country at this point. Now, when will the polling matter for the midterms? Still 10 months away. And when do you think that people will begin to lock in on? Because this is vitally important for President Trump.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think the voters pay much attention to the polls as we do. They're going to vote based on their own situation. And we have the Republicans down to in the generic ballot. Most of last year, and certainly in 2024, the Republicans were ahead in the generic ballot for Congress, which it doesn't, when you come down to it, it matches up by people vote on the names that are in their district. And but generically, the Republicans shouldn't be 2 points behind the Democrats. The Republicans need to get much more aggressive. They need to run a contrast election. For example, in that same poll where we had 87-10, they favored deporting criminal illegal immigrants. In the same poll, when we asked, would you defund and abolish ICE, 46% of all voters said they would, 48 didn't. And when you're looking at disconnect, well, who is going to deport criminal illegal immigrants? It's the
Right.
immigration. So the Democrats, and you mentioned it up front about this fellow Neville Singham from overseas funding a campaign against immigration. If you get rid of the immigration police, you have open borders. You then the country's destabilized, and these illegal immigrants.
People don't link it together. It's all an emotional response. We know that. But this healthcare and insurance situation, coupled with car and house insurance, insurance companies are battering the American people. I talked to President Trump about this.
Right.
And, if that continues unabated for the next 10 months, the Democrats could win on that alone.
Right. And we did a survey for the Great American Health Alliance. Last week, it was released in Washington. Almost 4 to 5 voters support healthier savings accounts. This was an idea Steve Forbes came up in 95, 96 of the presidential race, where you get money that's tax deductible. Could be your own money, could be your employer's money. It's in an account, and you buy insurance above that.
Trump did that. Trump announced that last week.
Right. What a coincidence. But now you have to get Congress to change the laws to allow this to happen.
Okay.
And
but maybe they will and maybe they won't. The messaging, though, on all of this, look, it's very clear, John, and I don't know how you, as opposed to you, process this. There are two issues the press, the media is driving: Epstein and ICE. They don't want to know about India or favorable trade agreement, or they don't want to know about savings accounts that would, provide money for kids. And they don't want to know about any of that. Okay?
Right.
Because the two issues that they've latched onto, they believe, the corrupt American media, will damage the Republicans and Trump in November. So they're going to just jam this all day long, every day. And that's what's happening. So how do you overcome that?
You have to overcome it the way President Trump did in his last campaign. The tough part is he's not on the ballot this time.
But he really is. He really is.
He is. Well, but it's the disadvantage, because people are voting on you as a national referendum, even though you're not on the ballot.
Right.
It has to get outside the beltway. In the campaign, we broke through the mainstream media by going out directly to the voters, using social media. President Trump did like over 100 policy videos. People that would go to his rallies, we might get 100,000 people there. You would have hundreds of thousands of people send us emails and texts trying to go. The campaign could then use that information to promote ideas and our position on the issues and do a straight contrast with the Democrats. President Trump ran because he ran directly against Biden and Harris's failed policies. The Republicans need to hold Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries accountable for open borders, for wanting to raise taxes. How can they talk about affordability when every Democrat in the House voted to raise taxes by $4.5 trillion this year? That's what they did last year. They voted to do that.
They voted against the bill.
But no one's holding them accountable. We have to get out there. We have to go outside the beltway.
Well, I don't know about the we, but it's going to be tight. But I think things will happen. Dramatic things are going to happen in the next 9 months that will, and we really appreciate you talking to us, John, from time to time. If you see any trends emerging, let us know. I think about September, the polls will really start to matter. And thanks for coming on tonight. Let's face it, the U.S. economy is under stress. National debt rising, trade war shaking the markets. And meanwhile, China is dumping the dollar and stockpiling gold. That's why I protected my savings with physical gold and silver through the only dealer I trust, American Hartford Gold. And you can do this. Get precious metals delivered to your door or placed in a tax-advantaged gold IRA. They'll even help you roll over your existing IRA or 401k, tax and penalty free. With billions in precious metals delivered, thousands of five-star reviews, and an A+ from the Better Business Bureau, you can trust American Hartford Gold as I do. Please call 866-501-5201 or text BILL to 65532. Again, that's 866-501-5201 or text BILL to 65532. If you are a homeowner, there's no better time than now to call American Financing to wipe out that debt, eliminate the stress, set yourself up for a strong 2026. The Fed dropped rates for the fourth time in December. American Financing can help you access that equity in your home at an interest rate that's in the low fives. That is a much lower rate than the average 20% or more credit card rate. American Financing is saving their customers an average of $800 a month. There are no upfront fees, no obligation to see how much you can save. If you begin today, might be able to delay 2 mortgage payments. So please call 888-462-9557. 888-462-9557. AmericanFinancing.net/bill. Okay, here is the final thought. The documentary Melania in the theaters over the weekend. Of course, the Trump haters hate Melania. They hate anything to do with Donald Trump. They hate. Movie did pretty well. About 10 million. Highest for a documentary in many, many years. It got mocked, it got scorned, it got lied about. And the leader of the pack, again, is Jimmy Kimmel. Go.
This weekend, the long-anticipated documentary Melania will hit theaters. According to the Wall Street Journal, Melania pocketed $28 million of the licensing fee for the film. You know, between this and her marriage, she's probably the highest-paid actress in the world. Melania, the movie, is expected to bring in between $1 and $5 million at the box office, well behind the horror movie Send Help, which incidentally would have been a much better title for the documentary.
All right, so number one, Jim booted the gross of the documentary. Number two, we cannot confirm that Melania Trump pocketed $28 million. I find that extremely hard to believe. Not that Jimmy Kimmel cares. He doesn't. But I don't think so. Could be wrong. Maybe somebody slipped her the coin. I don't know. But we can't confirm it. And here's why I'm doing this. Do I care what Jimmy Kimmel said? No. I guess as I get older, I get smarter. I don't know. I don't care what Don Lemon says, what Steve Kerr says, or Jimmy Kimmel says. To me, it's amusement. It's like Mad Magazine. That's what it's like. Remember Mad Magazine? Look what they say. But this wave of Trump hatred has really taken root in this country. I mean, people, that's all they hear now. Trump is the devil, he's a fascist, a Nazi, on and on and on. That I object to. Because there's not another counter to that. There's a Fox, there's Newsmax, and, News Nation tries to be fair on both sides. But it's overwhelming. It's 85, 90%. We hate him, we hate him, we hate him. Not good on any level. It really isn't. And that's why I report on stories like this. Thank you very much for watching and listening to the No Spin News. We'll see you on Monday. Thank you for watching. To view full episodes of the No Spin News anytime, sign up to become a BillO'Reilly.com premium or concierge member today. So, Congressman, what are the two biggest problems right now facing the American people?
Economic stagnation in factory towns, We took a bet on technology and finance. It did great, but we hollowed out manufacturing in this country and left a lot of people without economic security. And the second is the deep division we have in this country, the deep anger between people who represent bluer areas like mine and people who represent red areas.
Okay, let's stay on the economy first. There are plenty of jobs. Anybody who wants to work can get a job in this country. I mean, unemployment's around 3%. So why are you concerned about the workplace?
People are in jobs, but they're not in high-paying jobs. They're not in stable jobs. And a lot of communities don't have wealth generation. They're doing a lot of service jobs, but they don't have an industry that's bringing in wealth into their towns.
The extreme people in the Democratic Party get all the attention. There doesn't seem, if you go out on the street, Congressman, and you say, who are the moderate Democrats? Nobody knows. I mean, it's all the Ocasio-Cortez, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. These are the faces of your party. I think that hurts you.
Well, look, I identify as a progressive. I'll tell you where they tap into something, which is the massive income inequality in the country. We've gone from 53rd in the world in income inequality to 128. Now, the difference is, I think, to deal with that income inequality, you and I will probably disagree. I think, yes, you need to have higher taxes on the billionaires in my district, but you also need to have economic growth. You also need to build things. And my view is, let's argue with Donald Trump on who is going to be better at actually getting factories, who's going to be better at getting businesses there. And let's give him credit for one thing. He was right about two fundamental things. He was right that we were getting too much of our business going to China and that we had too soft a policy on China. And he was right that people in the Midwest, the heartland, were angry that their jobs had left. And I think the Democratic Party can say, he was right about certain things, and we have a better vision of how we're going to build the future in these communities.
I don't believe that most Americans are jealous of billionaires, and they don't think they're oligarchs, and they don't think that they've made their money illegally, and they don't think Elon Musk is a terrorist who's trying to come and take their home. But the Democratic Party constantly overstates and sells this division between the rich and the poor. You say you're progressive. That's a progressive tenet. You on board with that?
Well, look, I represent probably the place that has the most billionaires in the world. I mean, at the heart of Silicon Valley, I've got $13 trillion of a market cap. I was the one, I said, look, don't vandalize Tesla and don't cheer for any American company's stock to go down.
One more question for you, though. You're an honest man, and we're happy to have you here. The open border was really why the Democrats lost the election. Yes, the economy, but under Biden, the last 2 years, the stock market was good. He could never get the prices under control because he wasn't running the government anyway, as you may know. Biden was not running it. But the open border was embraced by your party. Nobody came up and said, this is insane. And the American people said, no. And that is what killed you guys in the last election. Am I wrong?
We made a mistake on the border. We let in 8 million people, and in the Biden administration,
long mistake. 4 years. Long
and look,
mistake.
I think that we've got to be for border security, and then we got to tell the story of people like my parents who came to this country to study. They were engineer, teacher. I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I was born in Philadelphia, 1976. Let me tell you the biggest thing, Bill, that the party needs to make it clear. This country was founded in 1776, not 1619. This is the greatest country in the world. It gave the son of Indian immigrants like me, someone born of Hindu faith, in a 99% white community in Bucks County, every chance possible. I today represent Silicon Valley. It's an amazing country. We need to celebrate it and have more people have the opportunities I do. And if people believe you're a true patriot, and they can tell that, they can tell that, it's not rhetoric. If they believe you believe in this country, they'll give you a lot of latitude on whether they agree on this policy or that policy.
I agree with that. You should run for president. So, Mr. Homan, I've noticed when you appear on the network news and some cables that the questioning is often hostile to you. It's not neutral questioning. It's like, hey, what are you doing? How many people did you throw out today? And I'm sure you noticed that too. And I'm saying to myself, why Do you have any idea why that so many of the American press corps are antagonistic to you?
Well, I think it's because I served President Trump. I mean, when I worked I was a third in command ICE under Barack Obama. We had over 409,000 removals, and they weren't hostile then. So I think working for President Trump makes me hostile, anybody that serves President Trump. But look, I'm proud to work for President Trump. I think he's the greatest president in my lifetime, and especially when it comes to border security and immigration enforcement and national security. So they don't bother me. Look, if I can live in their heads rent-free, I'm okay with that because I'm going to keep telling the truth, whether they like it or not. My talking points never change. I don't care if I'm talking to a conservative or talking to a liberal. They're going to hear the same thing because what I give them is facts. They can like it or not like it, but they're going to hear the truth.
Okay, but they don't like it. Now, when you were working for President Obama, who deported more undocumented people than any other president in history, all right, and most of those were at the border that got kicked back fast, and they didn't have this asylum con that they rose up under President Biden. When you were working for Barack Obama, in my research on him for my book, Confronting the Presidents, he didn't want an open border. He didn't want chaotic immigration. Am I correct there?
Well, his first term, like I said, we removed a lot of people in the first term, and largely because we're counting Border Patrol removals with ICE removals, and that's how come the number got so big. But he was pushing for that. He was pushing for more removals. But under the second term, the Obama term, we pretty much got shut down. I mean,
Really?
once he got the name deporter in chief, operations really slowed down, and that's one of the reasons at the end of that administration that I decided to retire because after 4 years doing that, I was tired of it. But in the beginning, he was about securing the border. In the last 4 years, he was not.
And you think it was political pressure, obviously, from the left that caused that?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, one of the beefs against Homeland Security is they are deporting non-criminal migrants along with the criminals. And I believe that's true to some extent because how could you possibly know when you go sweep a whole bunch of people, say you're a criminal migrant married to a person who isn't a criminal, stuff like that. How valid is that criticism that ICE is now deporting people quickly without due process that aren't criminals?
Well, they all get due process. I mean, the non-criminals, where does most non-criminals get arrested? Sanctuary cities. And I've said this for 2 months. Sanctuary cities are going to get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the communities and more collateral arrests. Because if we can't arrest a bad guy in the county jail, one agent arrests one criminal alien, and they're going to release them. Like the major cities of this country, sanctuary cities, you're going to release them back in the community? Okay, fine. We're still going to do our job, which means we're going to go to the community and we're going to find him. And when we find them, most likely they're with others that are illegally in the United States, but not a criminal. Well, we're not going to tell ICE agents, forget the oath we took, ignore the immigration law, walk away from these people. No, they're going to come too.
Okay.
So when you look at the collaterals and non-criminals, most of them are arrested in sanctuary cities because they forced us in that position. We're going to arrest them.
That's an important point. So when you do a sweep, if you find a non-criminal migrant, that person gets taken into custody, correct?
Yeah, to be clear, when we do a targeted enforcement operation, we know exactly who we're looking for, and we're most likely we're going to find them. And when we go to that location, look for that target, that criminal target, most times he's with others, especially if they're at a work site, they're coming too. Sanctuary cities are forcing us into that situation. So I've said this many times, let us into jail. That means less agents in the neighborhood. That means less collaterals, but they refuse to assist ICE. So we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Just to be clear, when you do an enforcement sweep, it is based upon information provided about criminal aliens. Is that correct? Local, state, federal information, right? That's the
exactly
sweep.
Right.
Okay, stop.
I wouldn't call it a sweep, Bill. I call it a target enforcement operation. We have a target. We got a sheet. Who's the alien's name? What's his immigration record? What's his criminal record? Where most likely will we find him? And it has to be approved by a supervisor. So we go on the street looking for somebody. We have a whole fugitive operations sheet that details who this person is we're looking for.
And where do you get that information? From the states, from the locals? Where does that come from?
through various databases that we use at ICE. I can't tell you all of them because the law enforcement sensitive, but we do targeting based on criminal databases. We use all sorts of social media. We use a lot of things I don't want to discuss here, but we create those target bases.
So you get the stuff, and if there's an undocumented alien who is not a criminal, they get swept up, they get deported sometimes, and it depends on the process. Am I correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, Michelle Wu in Boston is heading for collision with Tom Homan, who's speaking to me right now. Again this weekend. She basically said, we're not going to cooperate on any level. We want undocumented people in the city of Boston. And she's backed up by the governor of Massachusetts, Maura Healey. Do you have any plans to take action against Mayor Wu and Governor Healey?
Actually, you're the first show where I can make this announcement. So as I promised at CPAC, I was going to go to Boston. I'm going to bring hell with me. And we did. I was in Boston this last Tuesday. I started an operation with ICE, HSI, ERO, FBI, ATF, DEA, U.S. Marshals, and the State Department. And in a 5-day operation, we arrested 370 illegal aliens in Boston and the surrounding communities in Massachusetts. And 205 of those were significant public safety threats, including 4 murderers, child rapists, armed robbers, a couple of Interpol red notice arrests. We arrested a lot of bad people in the last 5 days in Massachusetts, many of them in Boston. We just put the numbers again today. You're the first show I've actually been able to talk about this. The numbers just got put out today, Bill.
Excellent. But Ms. Wu is defiant even in the face of those incredible stats. And they are incredible if you know the city of Boston. It's not New York City. It's not nearly that large. So I'm wondering whether the next step for the Justice Department, it wouldn't be you, it would be the Attorney General, Bondi, is going to go after people like Michelle Wu for violating some tenet of federal law. Do you believe that will happen?
I hope it will happen. I know Pam Bondi's already put sanctuary cities on notice. I know she's already sued a couple. I sent that report to Pam Bondi this morning on who we arrested in Boston and the surrounding area and the public safety threats that we had to take off the street. Because if we got to go to the street and arrest people like this, the job of ICE is already dangerous, but to go arrest an aggravated felon, murder, public safety threat, in the general public, not only puts the officer at risk, it puts the community at risk. So I sent the numbers this morning to DOJ. So I think Pam Bondi will take action and do what she can do. But she's already started suing sanctuary cities. So, God bless Pam Bondi. I think she's going to do the right thing, and I think she's going to try to hold these sanctuary cities accountable in courts.
All right. So it'll be civil litigation, not criminal litigation, correct?
I'll leave that up to Pam Bondi. We'll see what happens.
But it would be amazing to see, a big city mayor or a state governor like Pritzker in Illinois, or even, here, Hochul in New York. She plays the double game. The damage that the Biden administration did to the country, and I know this is a political question, but it has troubled me from the very beginning, seems to me to be incalculable as far as the Treasury is concerned, crime is concerned, social upheaval is concerned. Do you have any idea why Joe Biden opened that border for 3.5 years? Do you have any idea why that man did that?
No, I can only guess. And I've said many times, I worked for 6 presidents starting around Reagan. Even when Clinton and Obama took steps, as we discussed, to try to take action to secure the border, no one did more than President Trump. He was unprecedented in his success. We had the most secure border in my lifetime. But Joe Biden's the first president in my lifetime who came in office and unsecured the border on purpose. That wasn't mismanagement. It wasn't incompetence. He knew exactly what he was doing, along with Alejandro Mayorkas.
But there must be chat, though. There must be chat in Homeland Security and in the Border Patrol precincts about the why of all this. What did he think he was accomplishing?
I think they saw future political benefit and let millions of people into this country. Remember, when he did everything to secure the border, what else did he do? He overturned the Trump census rule, which means millions of people released in sanctuary cities will be counted next census, which will lead to more seats in the House for the Dems. I think they saw future political benefit by releasing millions of people in sanctuary cities in this country. That is my belief.
Final question. California has 50% of the undocumented migrants. Newsom is now backpedaling, as you know. But LA and San Francisco are still sanctuary cities. Do you expect anything to change in California?
I can tell you, ICE is going to. We'll be going to LA and San Francisco very soon. In sanctuary cities, we can't arrest a bad guy in jail. We'll double the man force in those cities. But we're going to do our job, sanctuary or not. If you're a sanctuary, you want to step aside and watch us protect your communities, then have at it. Just don't get in the way. Don't cross that line of knowingly harboring, concealing illegal alien. Don't cross that line of impeding us, because there will be consequences. But we're coming. We're going to do this job. President Trump promised American people we're going to do this. American people given a mandate. This is the number one issue. We're going to keep President Trump's promise. We're going to be going to every sanctuary city and arresting public safety threats, because that's what the American people want.
All right. Unless the court, Supreme Court, says you can't do a certain thing, you're not going to defy the federal court order, correct?
No, we're not going to do that. We're not the Biden administration who ignored the courts on forgiveness of student loan. They told me he couldn't do it. He did it, and he fought them every step of the way on that. Well, no, this is a law and order administration. We're going to do the right thing.
Let's go to Ukraine. So my hypothesis, let me use that word, but it's not really a hypothesis, because I know President Trump, as you know, pretty well, and I do talk to him. So he doesn't want to alienate Putin. He wants to soften Putin up so he gets him to a ceasefire discussion. And that's why you're not seeing him call Putin names and do all that kind of stuff. He also wants to tamp down Zelensky's arrogance, which we saw. Is this the wrong strategy on Ukraine?
Well, Bill, what you're describing there are the personal interactions, right? So that's a very personalized view of this. I think both of those are correct. There's no reason for the Commander-in-Chief of the United States to mock or call names for any leader. You remember with Chairman Kim, he'd say, we exchanged love letters. He talked about Xi Jinping in glowing terms from time to time. That was the personal. Same with Zelensky in that sense. I think you're right. I think he was trying to make sure Zelensky understood that without U.S. support, they were going nowhere. And I'm untroubled by either of those. The real proof is what's the policy? What's the outcome that President Trump's seeking? And from my vantage point, President Trump has always been someone who understood winning. And in this case, can't be the case that Putin can be perceived as having won. Whatever the outcome, whatever the geography, whatever the disposition in the end, we can't, that kind of aggression can't be rewarded, because it'll get you more of it. And if there was one thing I'm proud of from our first 4 years, Bill, is we were pretty good at deterring the bad guys from doing exactly what they did to President Biden and invading Europe. We're pretty good at convincing folks like Hamas not to invade Israel on our watch. President Trump's pretty good at deterrence, and that's what he's going to try to get back. I'm counting on it.
Okay, but you're going to have to let Putin save a little face. He's not going to surrender, because he doesn't care about how many people are dead or anything like that. He just cares about himself. So you got to give him an exit ramp off. I think Putin wants the ramp, but you're dealing with an evil man here. He's just flat out evil. Do you believe that there will be a ceasefire? See, I said once Trump was elected, I think that ceasefire is going to happen. Do you believe it?
Yeah, there'll be a ceasefire, but the interesting question is really the one that you pose, which is you have an evil dictator like Vladimir Putin who has, to date, evidenced nothing that suggests he's actually looking for that off ramp that you described. Maybe he is, but he's been pretty good at masking any willingness to concede a single thing. In the end, Bill, how I think this ends up, the call it face saving, call it what you will. I think he wants to be back in the global world, his economy back connected to the global international system. There's the solution, is that you find a mechanism by which to permit Russian activity back in the economic system. We rebuilt Japan, right? There's a long history. When these wars end, we allow these economies, the people of those countries, to engage in the world again. That's what I think Putin desperately needs for his own political stability back home. But also that's the ticket to give him something to say, look what I got us back.
Yeah, but if you give him that ticket, you got to have European peacekeepers in there. So you've got to give the Ukrainians some assurance. I mean, Trump was smart not to sign a document saying Putin breaks the ceasefire, the United States is going to go in with troops. You can't do that. But you can negotiate a deal where the UN or the EU would put, and you call them rebuilding, security to rebuild. And it'd be good if Putin kicked in a couple of billion too, which he'll make easily by, having the sanctions lifted on the oil stuff. So you know Putin pretty well. A lot of people just think that he is some kind of crazy guy. I don't see him that way. I just think he's flat out evil.
Not crazy. And I've been criticized for saying he's actually pretty shrewd. And while he screwed this up, he thought he'd get to Kyiv. He thought he'd get victory on the ground. Terrible strategic mistake, no doubt about it. He's not crazy. He is evil, and the rationality flows from that. I don't think there's any doubt that his intentions were even greater than that. In my judgment, he wasn't fearing NATO was going to attack him. For goodness sakes, that's just nutty. He was trying to begin the revisit of something greater for Russia.
Yeah, just like Georgia and Belarus. Exactly. He was trying to duplicate that.
That's it. And he didn't get it. This was a fail. And now he's got to find a way to.
So now you got to give him a push out, but you can't hammer him between the eyes like the idiot Democrats are trying to do. You say to them, well, if you do that, you'll never get a ceasefire, and they have no answer. Let's go to China. So China slapped tariffs on the USA Today. That situation seems to be deteriorating. Is it?
I think it is. And I know some will want to blame President Trump for that. I think this is all Xi Jinping. This challenge that's being faced by the entire world. And by the way, it's connected to Russia. We shouldn't forget for a second that the primary consumer of Russian energy today is the Chinese Communist Party, getting discounted crude oil and gas out of Russia. China is a huge beneficiary of this war continuing in Ukraine, in Europe. But I think it's deteriorating because Xi Jinping now believes that he's got a place where he can actually exert influence and shape things in a way that his predecessors didn't believe. The old, this is a rough translation from Mandarin, Bill, you'll have to forgive me, but the old motto was hide your power and bide your time. And Xi Jinping's no longer hiding his power. He's showing it full force, and it's going to require a real American response.
Well, when you say a response, everybody gets nervous. Is that going to be a military response? Can't do that, right?
Well, Xi Jinping's we're not going to attack China militarily.
Right.
But Xi Jinping is already running into ships in the South China Sea. He's circling.
Doing that for the last 5 years, though. See, right. As long as he doesn't touch Taiwan, then
that's right.
The U.S. is going to allow some of that to happen. But I see it this way, and maybe I'm wrong. I think that China's economy is really wobbling, just like Russia's. But China is more intense. And she, like Putin, probably at this point in history, would want a better economic situation. And he would be willing to deal for that. Am I wrong?
I think you're wrong. I think Xi Jinping has concluded that this is the moment. So you've heard some of our generals talk about 2027, and I can't put a marker down as for time, but I think Xi is willing to sacrifice an awful lot of his economy to gain a global advantage, to get closer to the political hegemony that he seeks. It's going to be really hard. I agree. They've got huge long-run demographic problems. Their real estate industry is way worse than anybody even knows, over-levered. So there are many, many challenges. But I think Xi has concluded that it's no longer time to supplicate to the United States on the economic front. And so he's going to push and push and push until the United States pushes back. And I think you see President Trump
he pushed back. 25% is a pushback. But if your opinion is correct, why didn't she move under Biden, who is extremely weak? Why did he live 4 years of Biden and he didn't really do anything that catastrophic?
Yeah, I don't think, Bill, I don't think for a second he's going to invade Taiwan. The military invasion there, I think he believes is unnecessary. His view is he's going to get Taiwan through propaganda, politics, same way he took Hong Kong, right? Force, choke them off, make their economy more difficult. And eventually the people will come to see what's that? Why fight this? And so I think this is a longer march for him. And I think he made real progress on that in the Biden administration, in the Pacific Islands, in Africa. You saw what's gone on in Panama under President Biden, where the Chinese got a foothold our doorstep. I think this is a determined strategic effort, not a
Okay.
Xi Jinping military takeover. He knows he can't actually win that. The United States would, in the end, crush him.
The press, the American press, portraying Donald Trump over the world as a villain. That hasn't stopped. And then they point to Trump denying Kyiv U.S. intel, and then Trump saying to NATO, we're not going to do any military exercises. Let's take them one by one. As you know better than anybody, the reportage on the intel is just flat out ridiculous because British intelligence gets everything we have and they just give it to Kyiv. So it doesn't matter what, and the former CIA chief, doesn't matter what Trump said, well, we're not going to give anything. The Brits have it all, and they'll give it to them. Am I wrong there?
I think that reporting is highly hyped. I always joke, Bill, that if I watch the BBC, I wouldn't like America either.
Right. So, but it's most people don't understand that. They don't understand how it works. Okay, you do because you were in there, and I do because I've been around for so long. The second military exercise thing, I didn't quite get why Trump did that. Do you know?
No, I don't know. Look, we've been trying to help them with training for an awfully long time. When I was CIA director, we were helping the Ukrainians. It was President Trump who provided the Javelin missiles, right? People forget President Trump did that. It was President Trump who put American energy in the front, making Vladimir Putin's resources worth less. I don't know why he chose that particular tactic.
It might have to do with Putin and some phone calls. It might.
It might. And by the way, I'm not privy to any of that.
I'm not either.
He's trying to solve this.
But that's the only thing I can think of. All right. Now, a lot of people, including myself, believed that you would have been an asset to this Trump administration. But you weren't invited. Do you know why?
No, I don't know the particulars of why. But again, I give presidents lots of latitude to pick the team they want. He picked
I know that, but you did a good job.
He picked an entirely new team, Bill. I think that's what
he even said you did a good job. He told me you did a good job. So I
worked hard, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I was surprised, a man of your experience, and you know all of these players, I would have put you as defense secretary. I don't think Hegseth is the guy. I would have put you there. But you must have thought about it a little bit, Mr. Secretary, because it is a natural fit. You succeeded with Trump the first time around. Did you guys have a falling out of some kind?
Oh no! Look, I don't know why he chose the people he did. He went through a lot of folks, Bill. I'll leave to him the personnel choices. I had said before, if he asked me to go serve whatever role, whether it was in the Defense Department, wherever, I'd happily go serve. And he just made a different decision.
I think he's going to ask you. I do. I think he's going to pull you back. Next time I see him, I'm going to get to the bottom of that because that surprised me. Because you know how
you let me know, Bill.
Oh, of course, I'll let everybody know. The president is unpredictable. I think that's an accurate word, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
He goes by his gut. I agree with you that maybe he wanted a fresh look. I like Rubio because he's a good counterbalance to Trump. I think that's a fairly good play.
I agree. No, I agree. I think Secretary Rubio is going to do a very fine job.
Because when he picked Tillerson, the oil guy, who you saved his bacon, remember that?
I do, vividly.
Yeah. What? That was a disaster. And then he brought you in because you're the pro, and then you guys straightened it out. When Trump left office, when he was defeated in 20, the world was fairly stable then. I mean, it wasn't, as you pointed out earlier in this interview, there wasn't a lot of threats on the doorstep. Would that be accurate?
We had things in a pretty good place. If you think about what fell apart relatively quickly, Europe fell apart. The advancements that were the Abraham Accords in the Middle East were dead stopped even before the massacres of October 7th. And then, we had come close to delivering on President Trump's commitment to reducing our forces in Afghanistan to zero or near zero. And President Biden came in and pulled the plug, and we all know the calamity that followed there. Not only the 13 dead and the many, many injured, but I think much of the chaos that ensued in the final 2.5 years of the Biden administration was a direct result of that epic failure in Afghanistan. None of that happened for our 4 years.
There's no doubt in my mind that that's true. I got some questions for you. Number one, your party was hijacked by far left people under Biden. There's no doubt about that. That's why Trump won. How did that happen? You're not a far left guy. How did your party get hijacked by the far left?
I think that both parties are prone to being hijacked by their extreme bases, both parties. In the case of the Democratic Party, Joe Biden is not the greatest messenger in the world. I think he did a lot of good stuff, but he's not the greatest messenger in the world. And too many people are intimidated to speak up against their extreme base. And as a result, I think the Republicans effectively weaponized the extreme elements of our party to say, like, you're all for defund police, you're all for open borders, you're all for all this extremist stuff, and it worked. There are plenty of extremists in the Republican Party, you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz, but we did not effectively weaponize that. And the bigger spokesman was Donald Trump. So you couldn't paint them with that brush. It was just the message he was selling as opposed to.
But I still don't understand. If you're a president of the United States and you go into office and open the border and 14 million foreign nationals come in unattended, that's a far left play. Do you have any idea why that man Biden did that? Any idea at all?
My belief, I genuinely believe this, Bill. Joe Biden is a creature of the Senate. And he thinks that, you know, to make long-lasting change, you got to negotiate a deal in the Senate and to come up with a compromise. And he worked on trying to do a compromise for years. Ultimately, they came up with this compromise in February 2024. It was too late. And he did an executive order in June of 2024. I sent him a letter along with a Republican, Brian Fitzpatrick, asking him to seal off asylum applications in between the ports of entry, and he did it. And the numbers are down from what they were when it was really bad back in end of 2023. But it just waited too long, and as a result,
but he too long. It's 3 years of damage.
The first year was not that bad because we were still having the COVID hangover. And there were not that many people.
Oh, but come on,
the border.
You know how bad it was. You said it in your campaign that it was wrong.
No, there's no question. My campaign.
You said it. So why did he do it? Why did he do it for 3 years?
I think he was focused on other stuff, and he did
other stuff. Look,
COVID was a major issue.
He rams through. I don't give me COVID.
Bill,
baloney.
COVID was a major issue when he first came into office. The
So
economy.
what does COVID have to do with an open border? Nothing. And then he rams through regulation after. Wait, listen to me. He rams through regulation after regulation on the energy industry, rocketing inflation so everybody suffers. And then 2 years in, he takes that off. Takes him 2 years to figure out you can't strangle the fossil fuel industry and not have inflation. And he takes it out and he drills like crazy. This is Biden. So he's the second worst president ever, in my opinion, and I know what I'm talking about. But let's advance it. You're the co-chair of the Problem Solvers Caucus, right? In the House, correct?
Yeah, 25 Democrats, 25 Republicans.
Okay.
We regularly try to find common ground.
But here's the problem with that. The most powerful guy in the House is Hakeem Jeffries. He's a far left guy.
He's not.
So
far
how
left.
are you going to get anything done?
He's not far left. But
come on.
I'm working for the people I represent, and I'm going to work to try and find common ground on the border. I'm going to work to try and find common ground on inflation and high costs. I'm going to work to find common ground on public safety. I'm going to work to find common ground on something the president talked about in his speech about chronic disease and protecting children. And there's a lot of things that the president has done and said already that I don't like. But I'm not going to focus on the things I don't like. I'm going to focus on where can we find common ground to actually solve the problems we've been facing for the past 30 years.
All right.
So we
now,
need to
you wrote an
border.
article in the New York Times. Good article. I actually texted you that it was a good article. And about Trump. And you just said on this broadcast, there are a lot of things I don't like that he's done in a week. Give me one.
The pardons. You know, I'll just talk about one pardon from the 1600 from January 6th. This guy, Daniel Rodriguez, was there when they were beating up a police officer, a Capitol police officer. He's on the ground. Some guys are saying, kill him, kill him. And Daniel Rodriguez takes a taser and sticks it in the police officer's neck, tases him. The police officer has a heart attack and has traumatic brain injury as a result. This guy, Daniel Rodriguez, texted his friends and said, you wouldn't believe the stuff I just did, and I got away, and I tased the you-know-what out of the blue. He pled guilty. He got 12-year sentence, and he was included in the blanket pardons. And there's a lot of examples of that from some
All right,
violent...
and that's legitimate. I don't think any fair-minded American would disagree with you. Give me a policy thing, though. So we've had a lot of policy in 8 days. Give me one policy thing that you object to.
The one thing that I disagree with is the complete effort to eradicate a lot of the climate change stuff. You know, I have a difference. I have a difference with the president on that stuff. I take climate change much more seriously than he does. He doesn't look at it the same way. And I'm all for, you know, all the above and utilizing the natural gas reserves we have in our
Why
country.
do you think, and that breach will never be, you'll never reach Daytona on it. Never.
Yeah, I know that.
Why do you think most Americans have now turned against the climate change zealots?
I think it's been very effectively weaponized. You know, I think that the Republicans and President Trump specifically have done a much better job of navigating the fractured media landscape. You know, it's not the traditional media that you and I grew up with, you know, your local paper and your local news stations and cable news. It's now podcasts like yours. It's like social media. It's a so much more fractured environment. And he and his team have done a very effective job of taking anything that they disagree with and blowing it up into a painting of the whole party being a wreck. So, you know, we got to figure out how to combat that and how to make our argument.
Well, we'll give you an open invitation. Come here, and also your peer, Laura Gillen, who's a Democrat, who's the South Shore of Long Island. I was telling you I ran into Congresswoman Gillen at the Islander game on Friday, and you're both moderate people. I mean, I've known you guys for a while. You're not loons. But I'll tell you what, Congressman, the power in the Democratic Party still lies in the left-wing zealots. And if you don't break that down,
well,
J.D. Vance will be the next president.
I don't believe in defund the police.
No, I know that. But the
borders.
powerful people, and to say Hakeem Jeffries isn't a far left guy, all you have to do is look at his record and look at his public statements. Look at how he categorized. Wait, just do this because this will. You're a guy. You went to the same high school I went to. You know, we have a lot in common. When those rioters in New York got out of control, you look at what Hakeem Jeffries said. That's all you need to see.